Well, we're getting started apparently.
No, we're not.
Yes,
no,
we are.
No.
It went.
I adjusted my hair, and that was
There's this feature on Kelly's phone where if you wave like that, it
so if I do my hair,
it automatically goes. So Kelly adjusts her hair and it thinks she's waving, and so AI hasn't totally caught up, I suppose.
Yeah.
You're using AI? Yeah, all that stuff's AI.
every bit of it.
Yeah, I didn't know if you knew that or not. But anyways, just a feature on the camera. But if you go like that, it just it goes. Also, we have a boring background.
What? It's not a boring background. Don't even say anything. Let's see if anybody notices what's different about our background. They'll just go back into the other videos and be like, oh, there was that.
Kelly took my locker.
I didn't take it. I just bumped it over a little bit.
Have you ever seen those like movies or commercials or something where like there's two people and they're dating, and then when they get married, she just slowly starts to like...
That's not even the case, babe. It's just, in your whole truth, it's just you. And so it looks appropriate. When there's two of us and it's just on my side, it throws it off a little bit.
Yeah.
I find myself cropping it out in the reels that I make.
You have to. You have to make those. This is wide format. You have to make those.
No, I don't use that for our reels for the double.
Well, y'all can let us know what you think. My locker's gone. I love my locker.
It's right here. It's right here. It's just gonna be pulled right over.
It's gone out of the videos. Is what I'm saying. Like
just this one. You can still have it in your whole truth. I love that locker. I mean, we have all these stickers on it.
That locker.
I do love that locker.
You all want to know the story to that locker?
Definitely tell the story.
So it's not. Maybe it's not that grand now that I've said it.
It is. It's pretty cool.
So I was in. Well, we had moved into this church building. We were in this really tiny little church, and we were. Well, I say really tiny. Like we were in a warehouse, and then we were gifted a church building. And so we go into this building. At the time, it felt really big. It didn't feel big later when we started to grow. But anyways, at the time, this building felt really big, and we were going through trying to figure out what to do with it. And I, for the first and only time, had a church office that was like a good church office, like a big church office. It wasn't like a storage closet that we took the brooms out of and then let me have it as a church office. And so it was, it was a good sized room. So big, I'll tell you this, I had my desk and I had a conference table in my office. And so when I had to meet with people, I could like sit at the conference table. And you remember that office. You saw it a little bit before we moved. Anyways, in that office was this like army green, not army green, not a good army green, like a file cabinet green, olivey green.
Okay.
File cabinet. Well, maybe beigey. I don't know. It looked like something from MASH.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like to me. Okay. Some of y'all are like, what is MASH? Besides potatoes. Anyways. So
oh goodness.
This locker was there and they were going to throw it away. They were like, "Oh, let's get it out of your office." And I was like, No, I love that locker. And they were like, "You like the locker?" And I was like, it just needs a little something. And so
orange.
What does it need? Orange, because orange is the coolest color.
It is.
So I took the locker and I spray painted it orange. That's all it was. I just took the hardware off, spray painted it orange, put it back together. And then everybody who ever came in my office was like, "Where'd you get this cool locker? Look at this cool locker." And maybe that's the reason I think it's cool. I don't know. And then I started
It's just pretty cool.
So then every time we'd go somewhere, do something, I'd grab a sticker and I stick a sticker on my locker.
Of different places.
Yeah, places and things. Like
That's true. There's like guitar.
There's guitar. There's a coffee house. I mean, I wish I could show it to y'all, but it's not in the video, so it's over. I'm looking at it over there.
We'll take a picture and we'll put it in the comments.
Well, we have got lots to talk about today.
Yes, we do. It's a iffy.
Where's your list?
It's a taboo.
Oh, the list. We're using your camera, so we don't have the list. Well, we're just winging it. We're just winging this one. I guess you're asking the questions because I don't even know which topic we landed on.
Yes, you do.
I guess I'm leading it. I know the topic we landed on. Is it what? That's right. Okay. I don't know why you can't say that. There's a microphone right there that probably just turned
They
it
did
up.
just hear me.
They listened.
Dating as widows, dating after loss, dating with children, dating as adults,
Dating is
dating
the
as
topic.
a pastor.
Yeah, and I would say, I wouldn't tune out just because you go, oh, well, I'm not in the dating world. Like, I think that there's going to be good application here, and in the sense of grief and loss and what to do in that scenario, or at least what two people did.
Well, because we have two different scenarios. I mean, to a certain extent, you were kind of. I was a different place at first. Then you were a different place, and
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I
So
think
there was.
if anything, there's going to be entertainment here throughout this episode.
Yeah.
I think, let's just start with the fact that I don't have, maybe dating's just not the right word, because I don't have dating experience. I mean, I've dated.
You don't have to date a bunch of people to have dating experience, and especially the grief dating.
Yeah, I mean, that element of it, I'm with you.
I see what you thought I meant by we have different experiences. I didn't serial date now, all right? And
I didn't say you did.
and certainly not after the loss of my husband. He was the only person that I dated. But before my late husband, I had a boyfriend.
Yeah, my actual dating life. I mean, I had when I was like 13 years old, there was a girl that I called my girlfriend. But other than that, like, I'm talking like actual, like, physically go on a date, like pick up in a car and go on a date.
2 girls.
Yeah, my wife, my late wife, Sarah, and then my now wife, Kelly. That's it. That's all I got.
I feel like we both gave you some pretty good experience, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think I'll start there. I think that's one thing to start with, not to go way back in the past and try to rehash that. As far as dating when I was a teenager, that didn't, I had a lovely relationship with Sarah, and then we, got engaged young and got married young. But I think that makes a good point of where I started after I lost her. Mm-hmm. So here I am in my, mid to, upper mid. I guess if you were rounding up, I'd be the higher end of, mid 30s. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm 36
Late
years
30s.
old. Yeah, is it late 30s at 36?
After 35, I think it's
Yeah.
starting to. But when I turn 45, we'll change all that in a couple of years because we're not going to consider me late 40s ever.
So is mid 30s only when you're is mid 30s only when you're 35? So 34 is early 30s.
No,
Mid 30s is
36.
35. I would have thought 34 to 36 would have been mid 40s.
Yeah. Yeah.
33 or 30s.
Even 37,
I don't know why I keep saying
47,
40s.
I would say is mid because I feel like it's the 8. It's like, oh, yeah, you're at the end of your 30s. Or,
Y'all can let us know what you think is mid 30s and 40s. I was in
this is going to change as we go along.
I was in my upper mid 30s. I was in my upper mid 30s, and my wife passed away, and that's
There's only a year and 9-month age difference between the two of us. He's older.
I,
Okay, I'm a little bit older. A year and 9 months.
so I like to date older apparently.
Yeah, because Sarah was older than him.
Sarah was a year older. Yeah, I mean, it tracks. This whole
does
thing
track.
tracks. All right, so what I'm trying to get at, though, we'll get here eventually. What I'm trying to get at was that, here I am in my mid to late 30s, whatever that is. I'm 36. My wife passed away. I was 36. My wife passed away. And one of the first things that gets said to me is that I don't know how to date.
Yeah, people thought you were naive.
Yeah, there was this idea that because I had only dated Sarah and then
Yeah.
married Sarah early and then she passed away. I mean, one of the early things that happened was that there was kind of this group that tried to surround me and they tried to, when you're like, when you get injured and your body like surrounds the injury
Yep.
with cells and then you end up with like scar tissue. I feel like it was like that. Like, there was this group that was, surrounding me, trying to be kind. I think in some ways, maybe not all,
Or
but
some of them.
Yeah.
Were trying to be kind.
And so they kind of surrounded me with this, layer of protection. And one of the assumptions was, you're naive. Well, I proverbially had some persons even like patting me on the head, like, oh, you don't understand. And
You only dated Sarah, so you just.
yeah, so you don't understand. I mean, I think well, no, I don't think. I literally remember someone saying that I don't know the wiles of a woman, which maybe I don't, but love the look Kelly's giving me. Your topic, you picked this, so
It's true. But
the truth of the matter is that I've in my mind looked at that the other way around, which was, and I said this to lots of people. You might be watching this and going, he said that to me, which is, I looked at persons and I said, for me, I feel like I did a good job picking the first time.
yeah.
And I'm going to do a good job picking the next time.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I looked at it, was instead of being like, oh, I have, mountains of experience of what didn't work. No, I don't have mountains of experience of what didn't work. I guess I'm not was it, I can't remember who it was, like Ben Franklin or Thomas Jefferson or George Washington Carver. I don't remember which one it was that said when they like invented something, they, and it didn't work when they were working on an invention and their invention didn't work. They didn't see it as failure, but they just saw it as like a, another way not to do it, but they learned another way not to do it or something of that nature. And I'm sure that to some degree there's value in that type of experience to be able to say, I've learned what not to do. But I think that there's also value in hearing from somebody who can say, yeah, but I know what to do. Like,
Right.
I know what I did that worked before, and I know what I saw, and I know the experience that I had. And so for me, dating was very strange at the idea of dating. So for me, I lost my wife, and it was funny because, at first there was this, like, I don't know what to call it, this insurmountable grief. It felt like that. I literally had no interest in anyone. Like, you could not have, and I think for a while I even attributed that to, and I think I still kind of do, I had really, really, really fought the idea of even looking at another woman when I was with my wife. Mm-hmm. Like, that was something that was just taboo for us. I know for some of you, this might feel like I'm coming at you, but I'm not. I'm just telling you, this was in our house. Like, if we're watching a movie and a beautiful woman comes on the screen, I don't look at the screen and go, oh, she's so beautiful, or she's this. We didn't agree with the idea of having celebrity crushes or something of that nature. We really rejected those ideas. And so, for 18 years of my life, I had purposefully, intentionally set my eyes on one woman and not been interested in anybody else. And so then when she passed, the idea
Was almost taboo.
yeah. I mean, I remember, I remember somebody looking at me and they were like, Justin, you're probably the most eligible bachelor in Kentucky right now. And I was like, I could not care less about that. Like, this is not the time to talk about that. And, so I kind of went through that phase. And then my heart began to change in that I was lonely. And my thought was, I don't want to be lonely for the rest of my life. I don't want to be lonely, and I don't want to be alone. And, then of course my kids are having birthdays and their ages are changing. And, for me, that's always like a reality check. You look and it's like, and in my house, you go through birthdays and it's like, lots of reality checks. And you're like, oh my goodness, my son just turned 16. My youngest just turned 10, and you had these kind of like moments where I begin to realize, they say in space that if you believe we've been to space.
We haven't landed on the moon.
Okay.
That's for another.
That's a whole nother topic.
Discussion.
So, but they say that when people get into space or when they're at those super high altitudes and traveling at really fast speeds, that sometimes people can, like, their brain will catch up and they'll realize how fast they're traveling, and their brain will kind of wake up to that. And I think whether or not you agree with space travel is neither here nor there to what I'm trying to say. I think for me, there was a part where my brain kind of like woke up to how fast life was traveling. Mm-hmm. And I was like, my kids, I think I told you this the other night, my kids are going to move out. In my mind, I'm at this place where I'm like, 8 years from now, 9 years from now, my house is going to be completely empty. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at my dog, and my dog's not going to make it that long, and my kids are all going to move out, and they're all going to get married, and they're going to have kids. And what am I going to be the old guy from Up? Am I going to be the guy that's hasn't found anybody? And so I think, I don't want to say early on, but I feel like for me, within a year, I went from the mindset of, I can't even imagine looking at anybody else, to I don't want to be lonely. And that was the big moment for me to say, okay, I am going to I'm going to find somebody that I want to marry. And then the big question marks in my mind were, well, who? Who in the world would I want to find? And I had standards there, and I don't know that I really want to get into that, but I had standards there that I'm like, I am certain things I'm not willing to do. And so, certain, I'm not willing to date certain people. And I think it's okay to have those standards. And so I kind of set some standards up, and I'm like, this is what I'm looking for. That one of those being like, she has got to be a Christian. I am not going to date someone who's not a Christian and assume that I might change them. I will witness to someone who's not a Christian. I can be friends with somebody who's not a Christian, but I'm not going to date somebody who's not a Christian. That was a big one. And I think that's somewhere in there, you came in. And so I think that's, maybe a good place to pause for a minute and come over to your side and talk about, how you got to a place of being willing to date. Because y'all might have heard us say in the previous episode that we kind of did a little flip flop. So, we met, and we're on a widow group. I think she thought I was cute. I'm just saying.
I mean, yeah.
So, Kelly and I began talking from a widow group. It's not a widow dating group. It was a grief share group. But we began talking with each other, and we'll talk about that and talk through that in a minute. But I'm just saying that we began talking with each other, and where it started was I was saying, I'm willing to date one day. Now, I'm not saying at that moment I was trying to say I was ready to date. Right. I was just ready to admit that I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life. And Kelly was
the opposite.
Yeah. Kelly started from the place of saying to me, I'm married to my late husband for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. I'm not ever going to seek anybody else. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to her, I was like, this is early on. I don't know her super well. We're a widow and a widower who are early on in that journey. And I remember saying to her, hey, I just know for me, I'm not willing to make that blanket statement to say, I'm not going to date anybody ever. I'm not going to marry ever. I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life. And that's something to consider is it worth being alone for the rest of your life? And so, there was just, I think for me, I guess the point I'm trying to say is there was a mindset of I'm ready to date, in that I don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
Not ready. I wasn't physically ready. Like, okay, I want to go hold hands with somebody today. We'll talk about that later. Y'all, I'm a slow mover. You stuck it out.
We may or may not go to that late. No, I'm just kidding.
You stuck it out, honey.
I did.
All the stories I tell on you, you can.
Yeah,
you
I
have-
definitely stuck it out.
You have
I've been
permission.
patient. I've been patient one area in my life, and that was this. But I think that's a pretty important area to be patient in. You know what I mean? I feel like who you're going to marry
Yeah.
or who you're considering, because we don't date to date, you know? And so when the dating came, it's not a, I'm dating you. And if it, you know,
We
dating.
homeschool y'all. You can figure this out.
Exactly.
We don't just we court.
We court. Exactly. You know, we look towards marriage, and I'm not going to spend months dating somebody that I don't see the potential of marrying. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah. But I think that's let's start with where
Yeah.
okay, so the journey for you after you lost Jonathan, and
Yeah.
how did you get to the point that how did you move off of the idea of I'm not going to date anybody, I'm married forever? What brought you to that idea to begin with, and then maybe how did you come out of that? Because I think for somebody watching, especially who might be in that position that you were in, of saying, I never want to date anybody else.
Right.
I was married. I mean, y'all look through the comments on some of the recent videos, and you'll see there are persons even right now publicly will say stuff like this, and they will publicly hop on and say,
Just mean things.
yeah, I mean, but I'll take the mean part of it aside, and I look at it as I think hurt people. And so, you'll see comments like,
I hate that statement though, because I've been a hurt person, and I've never gone out and tried to hurt people because I was hurt. And
well, the statement's not, it's okay to hurt people because
I know.
you're hurt. I'm just
but I'm saying I don't know what drives somebody to, because you're hurt, let's go and hurt somebody else. I don't know. There's a cruelty there that I just don't fully understand. That's all.
yeah, I get you. But I would say this, first of all,
I'm an empath, so I've always looked at the other person before myself, and did not ever want to hurt anyone.
but let's look at this. When y'all say mean things to us, and then other people jump in and say stuff back, y'all make those videos go really far. So, hey,
That's very true. That's very true.
all the videos that have really high views is because somebody says something really
somebody
mean.
pops off.
And everybody else jumps in and is like, you can't say that.
Yeah. I love my people, by the way, that jump in, so I don't have to say anything.
Y'all-
I'll try to be kind with my comments back. But,
Did y'all catch what she just said? So that I don't have to say anything.
well,
Y'all don't even know. I'm like, Steph, hold back, Kelly. Hold back. Don't
it's
do
one thing to
it.
say something about me. I can look at a comment about me, like people will say, she looks too old. I saw a comment the other day. She looks too old for you. Excuse me. I do not look too old for this man. Thank you very much. But I'll take that and just dust it off my shoulder. But you come for him.
Yeah, you come at me.
You're coming.
But you gotta go through her.
You got to come through me,
You gotta
because
go
it's
through
not
her.
okay. It's not okay with such great loss that we experienced. You have no idea the journey that we've experienced, and some of you do have an idea of the journey. But to come at him and say anything about his loss and how he's been hurt, not okay with me. But anyways,
She's getting herself riled up right now. We don't.
this is why I love my people.
I can feel the energy in here
Yep.
right now.
Yep.
Just all right now.
Okay, but anyways, let's get back on track.
So,
Let's get back on track. Okay, so I feel like my biggest thing was, so when I sat with Jonathan in his last, I want to say month, because he tried to have these discussions with me, and I said, I would look at him and I'd say, please, let's not discuss it. I mean, even to the point of when we were together, married for probably 5 years, and we were married 15 total, but about 5 years in, he looked at me and he said, you know that I'm not going to make it to 40. He wasn't sick at this time. And I looked at him like, why would you say such a thing? And he said, I just want to prepare you. I want you to be prepared to handle life without me. And I looked at him and I'm like, why would you say that? Like, you're a healthy person and you're young. And I told him, I said, if it ever came to that, let me cross that bridge when I get there. I don't ever want to think about that. Why would you put that out in the air? And he's like, it really is just from a place of just wanting to prepare you. I don't feel like I'm going to make it past 40. And I never understood that. And now I still kind of look back at that and I'm like, I don't understand that. How was there like a feeling that he didn't think that he was gonna make it? But anyways, so he would have discussions with me about a month before he passed, and he's like, you're gonna need somebody. You're gonna need someone to take care of you, to take care of the girls. And he looked at me and he said, but please wait until the girls are grown, and I don't want them to call someone else dad. And so I was like, stop. And I told him, I said, you married a very strong woman, and I don't need anybody else. I told him, I said, the love that you have given me in these 15 years will carry me through for the rest of my life. Like, I don't ever need anybody else. Like, I will feel your love from heaven should the Lord decide to take you. And I honestly felt that way. I honestly was in that mindset that, man, I had that love then. And so I didn't think that I would need anything beyond that or want anything beyond that. And then about a month later, he passed away. And about, I don't know, 6 weeks after that is when I joined the widow group, and I met Justin. And, like I said in the last podcast, we just had discussions about how you were dealing with loss and as a pastor and as a person of faith. And so. And
then let's not neglect the fact that she's hitting me with the what workouts do you do? And getting me to send you workouts.
Well, that's because I lost a lot of weight after.
Yeah.
A lot, 100 pounds after. I didn't take care of myself, and especially during the sick process with Jonathan. And I think looking back now at pictures and stuff, the weight loss started towards the end of his life. I think I was so wrapped up in him. And so I can see that the weight loss started there. But then after loss, I couldn't eat. And I'm sure a lot of you have experienced that. Some people have said to me, I experienced the opposite. I just ate and ate and ate, but I could not eat. And I had to force myself to eat just little things because I knew that eventually I'm going to want to eat again. I'm going to have my appetite back again. And I don't want to balloon up because I went without eating for months and then all of a sudden I'm starting to eat. So I would force myself to eat just a little bit every day. And anyways, that caused me to lose a lot of weight. And the weight loss started, and I really wanted to work out. I went to a gym in Vero where I was from, and
we got to tell them that story.
We do have to tell them that story. Should we tell it now?
I mean, we're there.
I agree. Okay, so
I feel like we're that part of
Lift Vero. Okay, shout out to Lift Vero. Bonnie and Steve Feaster are two amazing souls. I love them so very much.
So when did you start? So y'all we're going back in time a little bit.
Okay, well the funny thing is,
Kelly lived in Florida.
Yeah.
She lived in Vero.
Yep.
And there was a gym in Vero called Lift.
Yes, but before it was Lift, it was Longevity Fitness. Okay. And Steve and Bonnie owned it. Well, I worked for them as a trainer.
Oh yeah.
Because when I was 19, I was at my smallest. Yeah, I was at. You're a punk. I was at my smallest, and I was a trainer there, and I was only a trainer there for a little bit. But anyways, I worked there, and then they closed down Longevity Fitness, which was an only women's club, and they opened up Lift. And my first time going to Lift, I think, was in 2019.
Oh wow. Okay. So here's this interesting thing. Bonnie and Steve Feaster had a workout. They did a workout show online, and it was on a thing called Live Exercise.
We highly recommend it, by the way.
My wife and I were doing Live Exercise, and Bonnie and Steve were some of our favorite trainers on this Live Exercise. Now it's called Body Elastics. If you went to look it up now, you would see it as Body Elastics. You can get their app. And I don't want to get into the story how we got there. Just the interesting part is my late wife, got super into fitness. So she also lost about 75 pounds and she kept it off. And so, she had this weight loss journey of her own, and then she wanted to start training. She wanted to be like a a trainer for women. She had some kind of ideas of how to get there.
Like an online coach.
Yeah, like online coaching, and she had a channel, a YouTube channel, and it was all clean. It was good. It wasn't, I've seen some bad stuff, but that's not what it was like. It was, if you've ever seen like Fitness Blender or something like that, that's what she had in mind. And so she has this in mind, and she befriends Bonnie Feaster, or Bonnie Feaster befriended her, whichever way you want to say that. And I'll tell you this funny little part. My kids would agree to this. They could tell you this, that my wife used to get like giddy about Bonnie Feaster texting
To
her.
the point where we were talking about how, I was talking to Bonnie and stuff, and they're like, Bonnie, Mom would just kill to meet Bonnie. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's so cute.
We're here in Kentucky watching these guys online, and they had done, like Steve Feaster had done a cable show, an A&E show called Fit to Fat to Fit. And anyway, she has like her own product lines and things with fitness stuff. And so she was guiding, she was really helping my wife and encouraging my wife, and they would text and they would call. And anyways, it was this kind of relationship she was building. And then when my wife gets sick, Bonnie Feaster was sharing our story and some of the fundraising and whatever. Bonnie Feaster is sharing that, and so people in Vero Beach are hearing it because of
They're
Bonnie Feaster.
commenting and saying, we're praying for you guys. And she posted about, there's this woman who has cancer. She's married to a pastor. She's got a big family. I don't know him.
about me.
I had no idea at all. And I commented on this post.
Yeah.
And Sarah, his late wife, had made a comment thanking everybody for their prayers. And I commented on Sarah's comment. And I said, Sarah, I know what you're going through. My husband's going through the same thing. And please message me if you need to talk and if you want to connect. And I had no idea.
Yeah. So then
And I just realized not even a year ago that I commented on her.
And so then our spouses passed, and then we met, and we're talking fitness stuff, and she says something about.
Well, no, Bonnie posted a fundraiser they did for me and the girls after Jonathan passed.
That's right.
They did a workout fundraiser to raise money for us.
Yes.
And I posted it, and you said, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's.
Bonnie? And that's how we saw the connection that they worked out with Bonnie and Steve online. I worked out with them in the gym.
Yeah. And she's like, she's talking about like, Lift Fitness. And I'm like, oh, I've heard of Lift. I've never seen it, never been there. But, she's all excited about, being there in person. And I'm like, I knew him from like this online thing. And so it was just a really interesting connection that, we kind of both knew these people from Vero Beach, but it just happened. I guess online makes things a small world.
Yeah. But just makes it even crazier. I'm 1,000 miles away from him.
Yeah.
And then we meet, we find this connection that we know and worked out with the same people, me in person, them online. And so there's just that connection. And then my really, 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 really great friend, Sharon, she lived in Vero, and we got close, towards Jonathan's dying, and just right before his death. And she had told me in conversation before that, she has a house in Kentucky, and I never thought twice about it. And then after he passed, and when I met him, I called her and I'm like, where did you say you lived in Kentucky? And I said, how close is here to where you live? And she said, that's a mile down the road from me. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me right now. And so it was just crazy, that those little connections. And we had no idea. We met each other on a grief group. And
little connection nuggets.
Yeah.
What do they call that? Isn't that like, don't they have something about like so many degrees? They say like, like everybody's like so many degrees from somebody else. And so, but to be able to kind of see those happen firsthand.
Yeah.
So, but get us now to, how did we get to the point? How did you get to the point of all right, so you've had these conversations with Jonathan, he's passed, you've got this mindset and mentality that you are going to live the rest of your life alone.
Yeah.
Where do you feel like that changed for you? I know for me it changed by, looking at life and my kids and how fast things were going, and thinking to myself, I don't want to be alone in my house and, no one around. Like, I didn't want to be alone, and I didn't want to be lonely. And
so I had those feelings, but that was later on. what changed for me was our relationship. Like, it was a friendship, but I was starting to feel.
You had a crush on me.
I was starting to feel an attraction to you. You know, there was a safety. And I feel like for women, that's a big thing. And especially as a widowed woman with 3 daughters, I wanted to feel safe again. I wanted to feel home again. And I started to feel that with you. At some point in time, I started to feel like, I can't believe I'm actually, and there was guilt there at first. There was guilt that I found another man attractive, that I was starting to have feelings for another man. And, but I was, and I started to realize that there was joy in someone else. Like, there wasn't, I thought that I could be happy on my own. And I started to realize that there is somebody else that I'm starting to feel attracted to, and I'm starting to feel like, and so that kind of started opening the door for thoughts of, well, am I going to do this? Am I going to stay single for the rest of my life? Or am I going to, think about these feelings? Like, and then that led to, well, my daughters, are they, I hate that there are children that grow up and don't get to see a loving marriage and a loving relationship. I feel like that really does shape a child. And 3 daughters, like, for them to see mom be single through their years. I mean, gosh, my oldest was 13 years old when he passed away.
And I just want to say, before we keep going, I do want to say that I think what you mean by that is, like, you hate that for yourself. Like, we're not trying to judge somebody else for staying single.
No,
like,
no.
Yeah, certain people, we totally get it. Like,
Yes.
you could be in a place where you go, dating is not for me, marriage is not for me. I'm not,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there's no judgment here of saying,
None
like,
at all.
somebody's doing something wrong by not getting married or not
Exactly.
dating. We're simply saying, for us,
Yes.
these are those feelings. Like,
Absolutely.
you're looking at it and going, I hate the thought of my daughters not seeing a loving relationship. You feel like it's
Absolutely.
healthy for them to see a loving relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we both kind of ended up in this place where I think it was interesting, because originally Kelly's going, I'm going to be alone. And I'm going, well, I'm not going to be alone.
Yep.
And then somewhere along the line, it'd be hard for me to pinpoint that. Somewhere along the line, Kelly, she begins to make it known that she would want to date me specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's making it known to me, like, I would want to date you.
Right, because there was guys in Florida that were showing interest and making it known that they wanted to date me. They wanted
Wait,
to
who?
take me out on a date.
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
And for me, there was zero interest there. There was zero interest. Even though I had opened up to the thought of dating and marriage, I felt safe with you.
Yeah.
I felt like you wouldn't harm my girls, and you'd be a good influence in their lives. And that was the biggest thing for
I mean,
me.
it depends on what we're talking about.
That's not even.
I can be a semi-good influence.
No, very good. And so,
No, I get what you're saying, because
Yeah.
I often thought that we land in this place. Let's start here before I get to that part about what I was saying. What I often would think about like your girls, and I say your girls from a past scene,
Yeah,
like when we're talking
exactly.
back then. Okay, so we land in this place where Kelly has said to me, that she would date me. And I think for me in that time frame, and we totally had this discussion, was,
we had a very open dialect the whole time.
yeah, I mean, we were transparent. I think the
Yeah.
word to use there would be transparent. We
Yeah.
were very transparent with each other. And, now I'm looking at Kelly, and it's like reality check for me. Like, oh man, like she means it, like, right now. Like, she would date me right now. And then for me, I had to really get to a place of going, am I ready for that? And I wasn't. I wasn't ready for that for all intents and purposes. I mean, I don't want to make it heavy and talk about, the waves of grief that I was going through, but take it for what it is, that in those other parts that you've heard, and I'm sure one day I'm going to tell my side of, the widowerhood journey.
Widow.
So, I'm sure that one day I'll get into those things, but I was just looking at it and going, I'm grieving the loss of my wife and longing for her too much for me. I like you. I find you attractive, but I'm not ready to be in this committed relationship because I'm with Kelly in this. Like, I don't want to date for the sake of dating. I don't want it to be that I'm saying, well, I have a girlfriend just so that I can say I have a girlfriend. If I'm going to say that we're going to date, then it is absolutely, even if it's in the back of my mind, maybe it's not the forefront of tonight's date. Tonight's date is Top Golf. We're going to go to Top Golf and we're going to go have a good time. And I got to this place. Well, I'll talk about that in a moment, but I'll just say in the beginning, it started out as she's ready to date. I'm not ready to date. We flip-flopped. And it's not that I never wanted to date. I just didn't want to date right now because I knew that if I was going to date, I wanted to look at marriage. And I wasn't ready to look at marriage. And I told that to Kelly many, many times. I told her, I'm like, hey, look, you need to know, like, I'm just not there yet. And you don't have to be committed to me. You do not have to. And again, I'm not telling anybody what's right or wrong. I'm just saying what we did. I'm looking at Kelly and going, you are a free woman. You can date whoever you want. I am being very clear with you. I cannot date right now.
And the thought of anybody else petrified me.
Yeah.
You were familiar and you were a safe place, and I grew attracted to you and, eventually fell in love with you. And so I think the thought of that was just, it wasn't that I was committed to you. It's just that nothing else. I didn't want anything else. If I thought of no Justin in this, I was back to, I'm going to stay single for the rest of my life.
Oh, you just liked me that much. I think, for me, I think from an outsider's perspective, now this is an assumption, but I feel like from an outsider's perspective, there was a whole lot of assumptions going on at this point in time.
Yeah.
Because for us.
Well, when I moved here.
Oh, yeah. And I just mean in the sense of like you and I being friends, but not dating. And I used to say this line, I would even say it to my kids. I would say like guys and girls can't be friends. And I'm totally referencing that in the sense of number one, guys and girls can't be friends and somebody not get hurt. That's just something, you put that tagline on there and it'll help you understand a whole lot. For guys and girls that are friends, I mean, unless there is an outside circumstance that makes these two people friends, I'm not saying that you can't be friendly with or that you can't be friends in the sense of like in a group setting, but I'm talking about like what Kelly and I had. We become best friends, okay? Or I should say we became best friends. We are talking on the phone. We're texting with each other. We're confiding in each other. Our relationship is deepening. And you can't have that kind of a relationship with a guy and a girl and somebody not start to feel attracted to somebody else. And so I hold by that statement. I mean, you can disagree with that if you want. That's not really what this podcast is about. I'm not trying to die on that hill. I'm just telling you my opinion is that when guys and girls end up in that place, somebody's falling for the other one or has an attraction for the other one. Unless, let me just put that out there again, unless there is some outstanding circumstance that is making that happen. I can legitimately say that there are couples at church that I'm friends with the couple, and I would say I'm friends with that woman. If you were to say, who is she to you? I'd be like, oh, she's my friend. But I also, like, I don't put myself in a situation where I'm texting with them all day and sending them pictures. And I don't just mean, it's not like I'm saying like sending pictures, like they're like, hey, send me that recipe. It's not like that. I'm talking about like sending pictures like, like we're out and I'm like, oh, we're headed to the whatever day. And she's like, oh, send me some pictures. Like that's what I'm talking about. We are developing this relationship, this friendship. But I was still grieving. That's the part I was trying to get to is my heart was still heavy underneath all of it,
Which I just want to jump in here, because I mean, we're looking at both sides of a grieving situation and he's a realist in life. I am a head in the clouds kind of a person.
What?
And
I didn't know.
with grieving, it was like a totally different situation, you know, because I looked at the reality of it that he's gone. Jonathan is gone. I cannot bring him back. And I just kind of I lasered in on that, you know, like I can't bring him back. There's no option. There's no dream. There's no wish. There's no genie in a lamp that I could rub and say, I get my husband back in any circumstance. And so the way I grieved was kind of by, I don't know, using realism. Like, okay, he's not coming back. It's okay to move forward. It's okay. And I want to move forward. I want to be married one day. I want to enjoy life with somebody, and sooner than later. I don't want to spend the majority of my life without somebody, and then consider, you know, later on in life when I'm much older, you know, then I want to.
And I would say that I was in that reality. But for me, that reality caused so much pain. So
Right.
I think the standpoint became like we both were like, "Hey, look, we cannot have our late spouses.
Yeah.
We want that." So we're
Yeah.
both in agreement there. So the realism of that was there. But for me, it was like every time I went there mentally, subconsciously, whatever you want to say, the pain was so gut wrenching that it was for that reason that I'm like, I don't want to date. And this I said to Kelly a lot was like, I just wanted to be in the present. And this kind of almost became I don't want to say the word obsession because I'm sure somebody's not going to like that, but it felt like that to some degree. Like I just really got to the point, like my mind was so set on this. Like I didn't want to think about later today. Like I'm telling you, like I didn't want to make plans. I didn't want to think about the next day or the day after, and if you tried to make me, like if you tried to pin me down and be like, what are we doing? I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. And, you know, because it was hard enough to think like, I don't have her right now, but to then think I'm not going to have her tomorrow and I'm not going to have her the next day. There was just so much pain with that. And so some of you who know me, you're probably right now getting an eye opener and you're like, oh, like that's why he was being that way. I'm telling you, like it almost became a problem.
Yeah.
It did give me a pipe dream though. I do have a really fun idea. I have this idea that I want to live. You did this when you were a kid.
Yeah.
I want to live an entire year. I need a sabbatical year, and I want to live one entire year with no clock and no calendar. I don't want to look at one date for 1 year. I'm not saying I don't want to look for the rest of my life. And people, this always like throws out a lot of questions, which has made me like dig deep into this. People are like, well, what about, like, what if you see a clock? I'm like, if I see a clock, I see a clock. But
Right.
what I'm saying is like, I don't want an alarm
You don't
clock.
want to live by him.
Yeah, I don't want to live by it. Like, I don't want here's my plan. Here's what I want to do. I want to set an alarm on like Google or something for a year later. Okay, for 1 year. And then I want to commit to like, I don't put anything on the calendar. I don't put there is no, I'm going to go here at this time, not for 1 year. So I need to like pre-buy everybody a birthday gift and like have it ready. I send it to them like, you open this on your birthday, you know, like I still love you. I still care about you.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
just know that for this 1 year, like if I'm around and you're having a birthday party, I'll be like, great. Like this, but if you call me and be like, hey, next Friday, like I won't know when next Friday is.
Yeah.
I wonder if I could get to a place of like like if I could wake up in the day and be like, I really legitimately do not know what today
It
is.
sounds wonderful.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
I think so until you try to like go to a restaurant and it's summertime and they're all like, they closed at 8 and you don't realize it's like 9:30, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
This developed this idea in my mind of like, I didn't want to go any further than where I was right now.
And I was the opposite.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't stop thinking about my future and what the future looked like for my children. And it really was like I don't, anybody else who decides to do anything different, that I am not judging you in any way. This is my own heart and my own thoughts. I just thought about what is it going to look like for my girls when they try and get in a relationship, and especially my youngest. I mean, she was 2.5, 3 years old when dad passed.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, 3 years old, you think about that. What memories is she going to have of him? Not many. And I don't want her spending her entire life and not seeing her mom in a relationship, what a healthy relationship looks like, what, there's, yeah.
Yeah. So, I hope the picture we're painting is clear enough that like we landed in this place where I was going, I'm not ready to date. Kelly was going, I am ready to date. Specifically, she wanted to date me, but we had a very mutual agreement, and we were agreeable about it. It's not like we were mad at each other, whatever. If anything, I would dare to say that I feel like the Lord put two people together who could understand that.
Absolutely.
I totally get it. If you look at this and you go, that doesn't make sense to me. But it's not about making sense. It's you know why? Because emotions don't make sense. And that's what it is. Like, it was all about emotions in that moment. Like, my emotions were so wrapped up in, I don't want to think about tomorrow, that I did not want to think about getting married one day, which led me to say, then I can't date right now. I cannot be in a relationship if I can't allow myself to even think about what a future looks like.
Yeah.
And so I just worked through that. I don't know how to say much more than, for me, I just worked through, and I should say too, like, in the middle of that, there, similar to what you were saying, like in Florida, there was lots of opportunity of people trying to either set me up or, don't you want to date? Well, there's this other person. And then I think there was some assumption there as well that some people thought, well, he must not like her because he's not dating her. So what that means is, some people thought I was just using you. Some people thought I was just stringing you along. Some people thought I was just too scared to tell you that I didn't like you or something. But it was none of that. It was just that my heart was hurting. I didn't want to think about tomorrow. I had a friend who could understand. And there was parts of me that felt like, she's pretty, I like her. But then I would just stuff those down, I would just stuff those feelings down, like, I'm not there yet, I'm not. And so I didn't let those run too far because I couldn't let those run too far.
Let's talk a little bit about children in that too. What role your children had in your thought process because that was some of it too, especially in the very beginning, that was some of it too.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it goes to,
and when I say your children, they're my babies too now.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, free.
Yeah, in that moment, they were,
Yes.
So, for me, it was actually it was kind of a give and take. I think for you were at a point of looking at your children and going, I don't want them to see mom in no relationship, and they don't know what a healthy relationship looks like. Mm-hmm. And my kids were all a little bit older. At the time of my wife's passing, my youngest was 8 going on 9. Mm-hmm. And so, I have an 8-year-old and I had a 10-year-old and I had a 12 and 14. Yeah. And so,
16.
Yeah. And
in the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 12 and 14 and 16 in the house. And so, I can say that my older kids took it a little harder. And then, my oldest daughter was, what would she have been at that point? 25?
Yeah.
And so, my oldest children took it harder in the sense of the idea of dad dating. So some of that it was just hard as a family. It was hard on all of us. The thought of, it was hard enough for me to think about being with somebody else. But then for my older kids who had seen dad with mom for 16 years, of their life. They've seen this is all they've ever known.
Yeah.
Then it was very difficult. And I hope this maybe speaks to somebody right now.
And
Because
that's what I want out of it. I think we have a lot of people that question that and that have gone through similar, and they say, you know, how did you deal with your children and
Yeah.
they're not wanting, and I had the opposite as you, so I feel like you can really speak into this.
yeah, I think, one thing that I would just say there, I can just say from experience of what I've seen, especially adult children. So not children in age, but a child of someone, but you're an adult. They tend to have a harder time. So I deal with people all the time who they're like, my mom lost, my dad died 2 years ago. My mom's wanting to date. I think that when we're talking about adult children and their parents dating, I just feel like I'm not there. My mom did not pass away. My wife did.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
I can say that what I see is that when somebody is an adult or older teen and their mom or dad passes away, and then they see their mom or dad with somebody else, it's really, really hard for them. I think that some of that probably just has to do with the fact that their parent, that's all they've known, maybe, and so you're kind of forced into I don't know if the right word is to say a broken home, but you kind of are. It's a shattered relationship, and I think what you might be thinking of too is I have a friend who lost his wife, and his children told him he began to date. I don't remember how long he was widowed.
I think a year.
I do feel like it was like right at a year. Mm-hmm. And he began to date, and his kids said to him, they have this meeting with him, and they said, Dad, we want you to be happy, just not right now.
And I guess my point would be, and they're out of the house. Like, this is coming from a perspective of children that are out of the house. And so it still affects children, who, even though they weren't living in the house actively, it still has this profound effect on them and the way they feel about it.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like even in that scenario, I'm pretty sure, I don't know this for certain, but I'm pretty sure in that scenario, I think one of those kids who were saying that to their dad, I say kids, they weren't kids, it's adults.
30, 40.
Yeah. That were saying this to their dad. Like they were in another state.
Yeah.
Like they didn't even live in the same state.
Right.
But that's the way they felt. And so, it was interesting. I was shooting some stuff for a totally different thing, and they were doing an interview, and the person interviewing me, they asked me that we were talking to an adult, and they were talking about their dad and their mom and the loss of their mom, and they were like, if my dad ever met anybody, I couldn't handle that. And I was like, oh, like listen, like, you have to remember, like, that these are two people, that people just like you, that they're looking at the rest of their lives just like you look at the rest of your life, and they're having to ask themselves, do they want to be alone for the rest of their lives? Mm-hmm. And if you looked at it right now and thought, do you want to be alone for the rest of your life? The answer is no. And I can say this. I mean, I have had so many people say this to me. I didn't realize this was such a thing, but I have had so many people say to me, I've put myself in your shoes, and I've imagined what it would be like if I lost my spouse. Even before you lost Sarah, they'll say this to me, they're like, even before you lost Sarah, I used to think to myself, like, well, if I ever lost so-and-so, and I kind of like play that out. And then they come up with these like scenarios of what they would or wouldn't do, as if like that's reality. And
like they can understand.
Yeah. And I've told Kelly this before. I'm like, the difference with that is this. You can play that scenario all you want, but what happens is you get to come out. Say you're driving down the road and you have a 45-minute drive. You got to be in America if you have that. Apparently in Britain, they don't drive that far. But anyways, you're driving down the road for 45 minutes. You play this little scenario in your head that if your spouse died, you'd react. I mean, I've literally had people tell me that they've driven themselves to tears by imagining what it would be like to lose their spouse. Okay. But here's the difference. You're going to park that car and you're going to walk in the house and your spouse is not gone.
Yes.
And here's the reality of what happened with us. The equal opposite. You can play in your head how much you love that person over and over and over, but eventually you're going to park that car and you're going to come in the house and they're not there. Mm-hmm. And you're going to come to your bedroom and they're not there. Mm-hmm. And you're going to reach for the toothbrushes and their toothbrush is not there. And you're going to go do the chores on whatever day and you're going to do theirs because they're not there. And you can just continue to keep saying that over and over, whether
they're going to get engaged.
Yeah.
And you're going to look and go to look at your spouse and say, our baby got engaged and they're not there.
Right. And you know, there's a grandbaby and they're not there. And again, just take every little thing, the littlest thing you could possibly think, and that person's not there. And so you're just stuck with that over and over and over and over and over again. And so when you're in that place, then you can begin to see. So what I'm saying is you can't see it. You can't understand it from the outsider. You can play that scenario all you want, but it's until you're in that place that you understand what it's like when somebody goes, oh, wait a minute. I know now why 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, or 10 years later, this person would be so ready to marry, to date, mm-hmm. to not want to be alone. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, whatever that timeline is for somebody, we said this in the first video, but I'm sure we'll say it many times still, there is no timeline on mm-hmm. grief. You can't look at it and say, I'll be ready for you to date after blank. I think you should go a year. I had so many people tell me that. You should go a year. We did, by the way. I did go over a year. I went 2 years before I ever dated, and said now I was friends with Kelly in that second year, but it was in the third year that we finally started dating. We're coming up on, was it right before 3 years? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That we finally started dating. But I would just say that even though I waited that amount of time, I don't think that it's wrong. I don't think it's wrong for any amount of time. I think if somebody, here's that reality part. If somebody has said till death do us part and they lived that out to its fullest, that person, their spouse dies and this person is left living, if 2 weeks later they wanted to date someone, that is they're not doing anything wrong. No. And I'm telling you right now, as somebody, I might look at it and go, that wasn't for me. Like, I couldn't have dated that soon. Yep. But you have to understand that everybody is different. Everybody grieves differently. Yep. We're dealing with emotions, and they're not doing anything wrong. Yeah. And
just like you don't flip the switch of grief off when you get remarried. You know, I think that's another thing. And I know we've talked about it before, but I can't stress enough that, I mean, even when we're married 10 years, there are going to be times like, I mean, just speaking about looking over and telling your spouse about an engagement, or, I mean, I had to stop myself because, gosh, it stings and it hurts. And then I start start thinking about that, and I have to stop myself because I'll be a blubbering mess. But it doesn't mean that I wasn't ready to be married to you. It doesn't mean that I don't love you like I loved Jonathan. It doesn't mean any of those things. We had a love that we lost. And there's always I don't think there's ever going to be a point in time in our lives that at some point in time it doesn't sting to think about, or it doesn't hurt to think about.
Yeah. So So whether dating or not dating, the sting is still there. Yeah. Whether, getting engaged or not getting engaged, the sting is still there. Yes. So I can just say that when it comes to children, this whole part of this conversation started with talking about children in it. So I can say that my perspective has been that the younger the child, the easier it was for them to transition mm-hmm. and to accept the idea of me dating, and also of, getting married. And your children seem to be kind of similar. I don't know that, again, everybody takes that differently and everybody reacts differently, but I'm just saying that the idea of, mom being with another guy, mom dating another guy, that's not my dad. I think it seems like the older children have the harder time, with that.
Yeah.
And I do want to say of that, like, we're this far into it. I probably should have said this earlier. Like, we have a beautiful relationship with all of our children.
Yes, we do.
Now. And so, we're saying like your kids and my kids, that's all past perspective.
Yes.
When we talk about our family now, when we're here at the house, like those are my daughters, those are my sons. They're one group. We've become married, and so we say the same thing. Like our kids are our kids.
Yes. And I do get that question a lot. Like I just got it the other day. How do your kids blend together, and how is the relationship with you and your new kids and him and your girls? And it's really beautiful.
It's Happy Chaos is the name. I mean, it's a correct name.
It is. It's definitely Happy Chaos, but there is a beautiful, like the kids fight with each other. They bicker. Yeah. They bicker like they've always been brother and sister. And
they became brothers and sisters real fast, especially two of them. They bicker.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
It's funny, like from the outside, I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yep.
They're gonna go.
Oh, yeah.
They're gonna have it. It's like Tom and Jerry.
Yeah,
It's like,
especially at the dinner table.
Yeah.
It is always eventful at the dinner table.
So, but we're talking specifically about that period of time when we began dating. So I just want to be clear about that. Like, we have a really great relationship. We have been able to speak into all of it. And so, yeah, it was hard on my older kids. It was definitely harder than on my younger kids.
And hard on you in that aspect, like on the person who is trying to date, because it's not just your grief you're worried about your children and their hearts. I know that was a thing that you stressed to me so much, was I just don't want to break their hearts again. I don't want them to experience heartache again. And, you were trying to protect that. And I think that's a big thing for people who are going through the same thing, who have just lost somebody, who have just started getting interested in somebody. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, I think it's viable. It's understandable to say that you want to protect your children's hearts.
Yep.
And you should want to protect your children's hearts. My encouragement to anyone going through that right now would be that, stay the course, stay with it. Love each other through it. You can disagree and still love each other. You can have a fight and still love each other. And that's what I would encourage you to do is, not fight. I'm not encouraging you to fight, but I'm saying that if you've had that moment, come back and still work on that relationship. And that was something that, especially with my older children, that, I continued to do. I would be open and transparent about everything. From the very beginning, I said, hey, there's this woman, I want to meet her. We've been talking on the phone, and we went through the emotions of that, and there was some hard emotions. There were some, it's real. Grief is real.
Yeah.
And it's real for your kids.
Yep.
Let's just say that, put that in your mind, that you got to understand grief is real, and it's real for your kids too.
Yep.
And, they didn't lose a spouse, but they did lose a parent.
Yeah.
And they feel in certain ways when you begin to date, they feel like they might lose you, or they are losing you, or maybe they're losing their mom or their dad again. And that's understandable.
Yep.
I would just call for patience and grace, and, try to be understanding. I will say it was a bumpy road.
Yeah.
If you've ever been on a legitimate bumpy road, I've been on roads in Honduras. I got a sticker over there in my locker. Anyways, but, I've been in Honduras, and those roads are, they're bouncing you back and forth. And, it was funny. Sometimes I'd have to ride up in the back of the truck in Honduras, and I'm like sitting on the wall, and it's so bumpy. I'm like, y'all gonna throw me out of this truck. They all have roll bars because they need something to hold on to. And so I feel like that was our road. It was not you and I. It was not bumpy for you and I. No. You and I had an understanding. I think, outsiders looking in, it was hard for them to understand that we were friends. And so we've taken a really long time to get to this point where now we get to a dating portion. Like now it took us a year. I'm saying a year of you living in Kentucky. And we were friends. So at this point, we're not just talking on the phone and texting, but we hang out. I'd go over to your house and help you fix stuff, and you'd come over here and we'd have dinner together and play in the pool. And we were legitimately friends. We were best friends. And that certainly was in my head. I wanted to say this earlier, and I want to get back to it. It was in my head that, I'm a man and I have sons. I'm not scared of bringing a woman in the sense of like, you're going to physically harm me or harm my children. I like in my mind, I'm like, that doesn't work that way with you. You are a female with 3 daughters. And so for you, bring the wrong guy in. I'm saying when we were friends and we weren't dating, the idea for me was like, if she dates the wrong guy and brings the wrong guy in, that's catastrophic.
Oh yeah.
And how do you guard from that? And so, I think deep down, I was always like thankful that you didn't take me up on the offer to say you're a free woman. Go date somebody. I think if you did, my heart would have been pretty broken. I would have been like, but it never happened. So I don't have to play that scenario. But I do think that you were definitely in a different situation where, I could see, having to trust somebody and build a layer of trust. But I do think that the amount of time that we knew each other before dating helped you with that,
Yes.
built that trust in a way that you're like, people can fake something for a while, but I took so long. You're like, well, if this isn't the truth, this guy's like the best actor in the world.
True that.
So, y'all just know, like, so we started dating, y'all. I'd have a really hard time holding hands. I'm like,
I don't know that. I think we've probably held hands like 4 times in our entire dating relationship.
y'all, I was just struggling,
Exactly. And I understood that. Like, I had a woman say to me, do you guys kiss in public? And I'm like, well, he's very hesitant about it. And she said, well, I would tell him he can kiss my butt, and I'm walking away from that because there ain't no way. And I'm like, because you don't understand.
Right.
You just don't understand. And
Right.
And it was just a different situation. It's not like I'm dating this guy. I'm a young girl who he has commitment issues. And no, he is grieving the loss of his wife. And even though I'm grieving the loss of my husband, it was different. And I understood that it was different. And I understood the hurt. And you say you're glad I didn't take you up on that offer. And, I have always looked at it and looked at this situation and thought, thank you, Lord, for putting me in his life, because I would be heartbroken if any of these women that I've heard say I wouldn't be able to put up with that, and I would feel like I'm not as good as his, like that hurts my heart, because I'm like, if you had a woman in your life like that after the loss that you've experienced, that would break my heart, because I want to protect your heart like more than anything, because of what you've been through and the hurt you've already been through. And there's people out there that have the opposite.
You want to be
agenda.
my protector?
No, you're my protector. But I'm saying, I can't imagine after your heart's been shattered the way it has, having a woman in your life that you fall in love with and her treat you in that way, where she devalues your grief and your mourning. And
Well, I think that what I would say to that is that's not really love. And when you love somebody, like genuinely love somebody, I think that you want to guard their heart. Mm-hmm. You want to protect them. And so the reason you feel that way about me is because you had fallen in love with me. Mm-hmm. And so, I think, you know what it is? I think it's like one of those things, like easy to say and hard to do. I think it's really easy for people from the outside looking in to go, I would do.
Yeah.
And I think you can do that about any scenario.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a real scenario. These are real people with real hearts and
Yeah.
real families. And so when you're really in the middle of that and you understand why, I could totally see somebody going, wait, he won't hold your hand in the car. And they don't get that. But for me, it was like, especially in my truck, like that was a thing. Like it was me and Sarah. We dated when I was 16. I bought that truck when I was 16 years old. Like that was a special little place for us. And me reaching over and holding your hand in that truck felt like I was cheating on my
Right.
late wife. And I know that I wasn't. But again, emotions are not reality
Yep.
and they're not rational. And so, here I was in this pain because we're trying to hold hands. And so when I explained that to you, you who have been through what I've been through understood me.
Yes.
And so you weren't necessarily putting up with it as much as you were understanding for the person that
Exactly.
had the shared experience. And you were going, yeah, but I get it. I understand why. Did you want me to hold your hand?
Yes.
Yes. Was I still struggling and emotional over things like that? Yes. And so, y'all, I just like to move at a snail's pace.
But I will
we
say
crawl
about
our
the
way
snail's
through.
pace, when he knows, he knows, and when he's ready, he's ready. And there is a security in that too. Like when you were ready to marry me,
Yeah.
and you proposed to me, what a beautiful thing it was, because I am an impatient person, and I wanted to be married so bad and engaged and at the same time, I'm like, well, he's grieved. This isn't a normal situation. This isn't a man who's dragging his feet. This is a man who
Yeah.
is still grieving. And so I could be patient, but I'm still human. And so I still had questions in my mind of, am I doing the right thing? Is he ever going to be able to marry me? Is he ever going to be able to look at a future with me? And so there was, those elements of it. But then when you were ready, and I love that you took your time. I didn't love it so much then, but I love that you took your time because you did it the right way. We're not sitting here and you jumped the gun at a year and then we have this horrible marriage because you didn't allow yourself the time. You know what I mean? So I think there's beauty in it for sure.
And I think just speaking into that, when we were dating, specifically about dating, I think that for me, I just looked at it and said, hey, look, I know that thinking into the future hurts. I'm dating you with a purpose, but I cannot go there in my mind right now. So I'm dating you with a purpose, but like, I just want to be on this date today. Like, I don't want to think about tomorrow. I don't even want to think about I don't want to think about our next date. That was always with Kelly. Like, we're getting done with one date. She's like, when are we doing it again? I'm
I
like,
was thinking that last night on our date. When's our next date?
our date to the community town hall meeting.
So does this mean that we get another date? Because
We're always closing a date, and Kelly's like, "When's the next time we're getting together?" And I'm like, "Don't ask me." And so, that was part of the struggle. But I would just encourage you. When it came to that, I just said, enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, I was saying this to myself, like, just enjoy tonight. Just enjoy being out. Enjoy, going, doing whatever we were doing. And it was difficult. We had children, so we had lives. There's basketball games and there's baseball games and there's, plays that my son's in a play. And there's all of these things that are happening in life that made dating a challenge. Going on a date was a challenge just because of logistics, just because of the schedule.
Yep.
And here I am as a pastor, and so there's times that I'm supposed to be going on a date, and then somebody calls me up, and they're going through whatever trauma, tragedy, whatever, and all of a sudden, I'm like grieving widower dad, trying to go on a date, trying to play counselor, whatever. And then sometimes, I'd go, and sometimes I'd even be on the phone when I'd pick Kelly up, and I'm like getting off the phone as I pick her up, and I'm sitting in the car for a minute, and she'd be like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like,
This is so true.
yeah.
This is so true. And I kind of want you to briefly speak into that, like dating as a pastor,
Yeah.
and the challenges that were there.
I think that for that, I would just say that you're recognizing this. Life as a pastor is life under the microscope.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to insult you all when I say that. I love you guys, but when you look at the moment somebody has the name pastor, when the Bible says that the teacher let not many in James, the book of James, like let not many of you become teachers, because we know that we're held to a stricter judgment. Like there's an accountability there. Some of that is earthly.
Yeah.
Some of that accountability is earthly, and things that others feel perfectly permitted to do. The moment you have the name pastor, you are no longer allowed to do that. And dating is included in that. Mm-hmm. So, here was my life under the microscope. Everybody feels as though they have a right to all of my private life and private information.
Mm-hmm. Questioning what time I'm at your house until when I'm coming and going, people driving by and seeing my vehicle in the driveway and having something to say about it, and
checking, checking how late. I mean, people say, I say this cautiously, but I saw that Kelly's car was over at your house and it was after midnight. Yeah, we were out back having
or painting
fire,
or painting this room.
Yeah,
or painting,
right,
Phoebe's pottery room.
I remember one time somebody said to me, they said, "Well, we heard you sneak out at all hours of the night," and I was like, "What?" And I'm like, I don't have a curfew. I'm a grown adult.
Exactly.
I'm allowed to.
Exactly.
If it's 9:30 at night and I want to, go pick up Kelly, and I mean, goodness, there were times we'd sit on the back of my truck bed, and I mean, I remember one night you had bought like Orange Jones soda, and I forgot maybe an ice cream sandwich or something. I can't remember what it was, and we sat on the back of my truck, in our driveway talking, and we were there till I don't know 1 a.m. or something, and so. There was just life under the microscope as a pastor. And so dating in that way, I would just say also, if you're a pastor or if you send this to a pastor and somebody's watching that, I would say, this is a prime opportunity for you to live above board. But you also don't have to live up to somebody else's standards. Yeah. They'll give you some very unreasonable standards. Exactly. I mean, I guess I had a curfew of 8:00 at night, and if I wasn't home by 8:00, I was doing something wicked.
Which, by the way, let me just speak into that. He was so respectful of his family time, which was so important, and was the reason that we got together past 7, 8, 9 o'clock, because you were spending quality family time with your children. And then making time for me.
Yeah.
And
there's a little story that I'm reminded of when it comes to dating as a pastor, as an adult, as a dad, as a widower. Put all those things together. I'm reminded of the story of this guy that's his riding on a camel, and his wife was walking. Or maybe it was a donkey in the story. I think it's a donkey. He's riding on this donkey, and his wife is walking beside him, and somebody's walking down the road, and they said, How dare you have her walk while you're on that donkey? And so he's like, oh my goodness, this does look terrible. I mean, it's just situational. That's just the way that it landed. And so he hops off the donkey, and he's like, get his wife up on the donkey. The next person sees him, and they're like, what are you doing? Like, are you not the one that, like, are you going to put your wife up on the donkey? Are you not like the man of your house or whatever? And he's like, oh my goodness. So he just like thinks, okay, take my wife off the donkey, takes his wife off the donkey, takes all the stuff they're carrying, they put it on the donkey. And then somebody else walks by, and they're like, what are you doing loading that donkey down? Do you not care about your donkey? And so then he takes all the stuff off of the donkey, and now they're carrying the stuff, and the donkey's walking, and they're walking beside the donkey, and somebody else walks by and goes, well, you idiot, why are y'all carrying that when you have a donkey? Mm-hmm. And so, the point of it being that there was nothing he could have done that was right. Everybody had something to say. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when it came to dating, that is, there were some who looked at me like, well, you're naive. There were others who looked at me like I was trying to go out and do something wrong. And for me, I just had to look at it and say, this is what's best for my family. I didn't want our friendship or our dating to ruin something that I had going on with my family, in the sense of like I'm ignoring my family time. Family time is very important to us. So just a picture for that for everybody else. Like I made it a point that before my older kids started working, we were at least 5 nights a week we have dinner at the table. Like we all sit at the table and we all have dinner together. So I'm cooking dinners 5 nights a week, like big family dinners. I've got 5 kids at home, and I'm cooking big family dinners, and then sometimes Kelly would come over with her girls, and so now I'm cooking for 8 or 9 people, and then sitting everybody down at the table. And so having big family meals together. And another big one for us was to like go out in the yard and play frisbee, or play kickball was a big one, or go get in the pool, or go on a bike ride, or go for a hike. And so I'm always taking the kids and doing things. And for us, it seemed like, Dad does his work all day, and then come 4 in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon, stop doing that work and turn on, okay, now I've got to be Mr. Mom, and I'm, doing stuff around the house and getting the dinner ready and whatever. And then we would have dinner. And then after dinner was this intentional family time. And that was a really special time. I didn't want to lose that. And I expressed that to Kelly. I don't want to lose that because we're dating. And so I wanted to keep that family time that we had, even though we were dating. And so that caused many times for me to say, hey, I'm doing this and this and this with the kids today. I'll talk to you at 8:30. I'll talk to you at 9 o'clock. And so then 9 o'clock, remember, this is the guy that doesn't want to make plans. So here I am at 9 o'clock. I'm like, hey, you want to come over and throw darts? And so that's the phone. I saw this thing with these kids where they were asking kids, they like put something between them. They're like, ask an adult and ask a kid. And they asked the adult, like, make a phone call, how would you show a sign for a phone call? And they asked the kid, and they're something between them so they can't see each other. And the kid holds his hand like this and goes like that. And the guy, the adult guy's like, puts his hand like that. So like we think of phone like that, but that means we're old, because otherwise it's this. This is phone.
Exactly.
Got to hold a brick.
Exactly.
Anyways, so, for us, that was, dating with children. I think, just to be clear of the whole thing, I think for us, it really looks like pretty much about every other week we would try to go on a date. You really pushed for weekly, but you lost that over and over and over.
It's true. And I still push for weekly, I think it's important.
You'd push for daily if you thought you could get it.
Stop. It's not true, but it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So, we would date when we could, and we dated when it felt like it was appropriate for our grieving, dated when we felt like it was appropriate for our family and our family life and what was going on there. And, and then there's that part that says, hey, like, this is also important. Like, the dating itself is also just as important as all these other things, because we're getting to know each other and looking at each other as,
Potential spouse.
Yeah, as potential spouse. Like, is this somebody that I genuinely want to live with? And I was very honest with myself and with you about all of that, like full transparency. Over and over would say, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. These are things that are going through my head. And you the same. Like, I feel like we had a really open and transparent relationship to say, these are the things that are going on emotionally, and these are things with my family, and these are things I like and don't like. And, we worked through a lot of those. And I think that was really wise of us to take our time and work through those kind of on an individual, like take it a day at a time and take it a thing at a time and just deal with it.
Yeah.
Holding hands was one of them. I mean, Kelly very clearly looked at me and was like, okay, what's going on? Why won't you hold my hand? And it's not that I didn't want to hold her hand. It's just that for me, that was like an action. That was like one thing that made me feel like I was cheating on my spouse, on my late wife. And I didn't like the way that made me feel. And so because of that, now, y'all, I will totally hold hands with Kelly now. Like, it's not like I have some mental block that I can't hold hands with you. But there was a time when that was hard, and I had to kind of like,
into it.
I had to work through that. And we could probably name plenty of other things. I remember several times having conversations with Kelly. I'm doing good. good. Like now I'll do this. Now, now we'll go. So that was, that was big, big changes for me.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And required a lot of patience on my part.
I'm just helping you to develop
Patience.
patience.
That it did.
Yeah.
But all in a good way. All in
Yeah.
a good way.
So there you have it. We were friends for a year. Then we dated for,
Almost 2 years.
you say almost 2 years, but I feel like it's a year and a half.
Yeah, year and a half.
I mean, unless you want to be, I was about to do it with the age, but you see the look. See the look you just gave
A
me.
year and a half. We dated for a year and a half.
Yeah, we dated so we started dating in March, right at the end of March, 1st April.
Almost April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
Day before April Fool's Day.
That would have been a funny joke. I missed an opportunity.
You did, but I'm so glad you didn't take that opportunity. I'm so glad. I mean, I had people because he asked me to be his girlfriend on March 31st. And we posted the next day because we wanted to be respectful. And, he wanted to notify family and certain people of our relationship before they saw it on Facebook, which is so noble. It really is. I love that about him. And so we posted on April 1st, on April Fool's Day. And my sister texted me and she's like, is this a joke? And I'm like, do you think I would joke about something like that? I absolutely would not. So
yeah. So then, we took our time dating, and I don't say take your time in the sense of like there's a time limit, as in do these. I would just say like take your time in the sense of like just let it be what it is, and I think that was helpful for us to just let things come as they may.
But he had a challenge with me. He truly did. Like I'm always living in the future. I've been like that my whole life. I've always like looking for the next thing. Like, what are we going to do next? Where are we going to go next? What's going to happen next? And so he had a bit of a challenge.
I feel like that's one of those God has a sense of humor things.
Yeah. So I had a challenge in that he was slow to move, and he had a challenge in me that I was ready for the next thing, constantly ready for the next thing. And I think it's taught me a lot during that period of time, though, that, and I'm still not completely there. Like I still look to the future a lot of times, but
I feel like we've come to a place of a happy medium.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that for sure.
First of all, let's just say that like after getting married, I know today's episode was about dating, and we kind of branch into marriage a little bit, but after getting married, you take care of the calendar, and for the guy who hates the calendar and like didn't want the calendar, to have somebody to say, okay, like, whether it's friends or, getting together with friends or things that we have to do, like I was putting it on my calendar, but it was begrudgingly, I was so angry at my calendar. And then when it gets full, it like makes it even worse. I just get like riled up in my head. I'm like, my blood's boiling because my calendar's so full. And so, Kelly has taken that stress, but it works well because you love to live in the future. So it like
plan.
Yeah. So she loves to she loves to look at it a month in advance. Like, look, we've got all this stuff. I'm like, don't show that to me. Don't show that to me. We'll look in a couple of days.
And it's funny because I'll open his phone, and I'll go to his calendar and it's on today. It's not a month view. And I didn't realize it until just now. And I'm like, every time I open up his phone and I go to his calendar, it's on, and I'm like, why does he keep doing this? And I'll click month so I can look at the month scope.
That's why it keeps going back to month. Because I'm like, why does this thing keep going back to month
And I
view?
didn't think anything of it. And I'm like, how does he not, like, I want to see the overall view. Why is he having
I'm getting better.
But now I'm like, it makes sense because he doesn't want to look at the full view, which I get. If you saw our calendar,
It's stressful.
it's stressful.
Happy chaos.
I enjoy it. Happy chaos.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
So, there it was, y'all. Like, I just, maybe if I could just close this out by saying something like this. I think one thing is to just accepting each other's differences. Yes, it was a challenge. Like, listen to even that part of the story. Like, there's a challenge there. You've got the guy that doesn't want to look anywhere beyond like the very present moment. Like, I was literally trying to live in the moment. I do feel like I'm doing better about that, but
Yeah,
like,
much better.
here's this guy, and then here's you, like ready to live in the future, so to speak.
Well,
Like,
let's add on to that I knew we were going to get married. The Lord put it on my heart, and I knew that this was the man that I was going to marry. And so that makes it even harder because I'm like, I can see 3 years ahead of time, and we're going to be married to each other. So let's just skip there. Sorry, go ahead. Finish your closing point.
she's a prophetess.
Stop.
So, did you hit me?
Yes.
No, you're so weak, I didn't even feel it. Okay, anyways. But look at that, how the Lord used that. Like, now here it is to say, hey, those differences that were challenging in the moment of dating, of, you want to look to the next date. I know that emotionally deep down, you're, ready to get engaged and ready to get married. And here I am, like, I did good. I held your hand yesterday, I don't know. I did that like an old man shaking a cane.
It was cute.
But look at those differences and then how they came together, and the Lord worked those together. And so, don't be too discouraged because you're going through some emotional part of that. And, there's other types of loss, and there's other types of, reasons for people to be in a situation where they have to deal with, are forced to deal with their grieving. I think there's lots of application to just accepting the fact that, accept where you are. You don't have to. Somebody gave me that advice a long time ago. I don't remember who said it to me, but I remember them saying, sometimes the best thing to do is to just kind of lean into it and let it be,
And soak your life in prayer.
Oh, yeah.
Because let me just speak into our older children, which were his. I prayed endlessly that the Lord would heal their hearts. And I prayed for a relationship with these children every day. I mean, more than once a day. I would beg the Lord to heal them and to give them a relationship with me. And I feel like I have the sweetest relationship with our children. And I don't know. I feel like there's so much power in prayer, and I knew that there would be. I knew that the Lord is good and that he is faithful, and I can't encourage praying enough.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that we have a really sweet relationship all the way around. I think I think we'll talk about that, and we want to talk about kind of blending families in another episode. So, but just to state for a moment that I think, it's been I think a beautiful process to see the progression of, kind of shock in the beginning of like, these two want to meet, and our mom and your dad want to meet, and then even more, now they've become friends, they're talking all the time, and I don't know, again, kind of proverbially, the kids were kind of doing the whole like, Dad and Kelly sitting in a tree, like they're kind of like, I'm saying that to say like they knew we were going to date, like they knew, other people in the church knew, friends knew, people could tell, hey, we're, something, either they're going to date or something. And then we started dating in the same way when we got to the point of getting engaged. I think everybody was like, okay, we see the writing on the wall. This is probably going to happen.
Yeah.
Either you're going to end up getting married or you're going to break up.
I remember walking into church the Sunday you asked me to be your girlfriend on a Friday night, and it's that Sunday. I'm telling you, I had every person in that church come up to me with these smiles on their faces, and they're like, yay, he asked you to be his girlfriend. We're so happy. And then even at our wedding, it was such a beautiful thing to see the joy on all of our church families' faces, that they got to experience that moment with us, and the joy that they had, and that it's just, and our kids, like, that's why we made a reel last night, and I say, if I could relive our wedding, because there was so much joy with everybody, it was just beautiful.
Yeah, that was a really special, day. Maybe we'll make that an episode and talk about like why we did that. I don't know. We got to come up with episode ideas.
And you can let us know too if there's something that you want us to talk about.
You know what we were going to do today that we forgot? We were going to read comments from the other. We'll do that in the next one. Next
Yeah.
time we're gonna read through some of our favorite
Maybe
comics.
we'll just do a shorter podcast.
I'm gonna
midweek.
I'm gonna touch on one right now. Okay, Kentucky Curmudgeon. We know this is not.
We love you.
This is not brown. This is black. It's shiny. I wish I could make the shine stop that light shine.
It's
on it.
black though.
It is black.
I looked at him and I said, "Why did he say brown?"
It is crooked, but I can't
He
fix
said the
it.
podcast is great, but the brown plug in the back.
back.
But by the way, I need to know where you are, Kentucky Curmudgeon.
Oh.
I haven't seen you in a while, so
She's paying attention.
yeah, we're just wondering where you are. We missed your smile.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that outlet is crooked, but
Is that why we haven't seen? No, I'm just kidding.
that outlet is not brown. It is a little crooked, but the reason it's crooked is because it's not attached to a stud. It's got those like what do you call them? Like remodel. They're like little fan little
Yeah.
clip things that come out and you tighten them up. And maybe I just need to replace the box with a different one, but that feels like a lot of work to get it to go from this to this. So it's. I
Yeah.
hate to tell you, man, it's probably gonna stay. I feel like
Maybe we can learn how to edit that out. We can just put like a wall.
I feel like one day I'm gonna take like a little picture or something and hang it over it just for you, just to like keep it.
That's funny. That's funny.
All right, y'all. There you go. I don't know how much help we can be in the dating world, considering we only dated each other.
Yeah.
So, if you were coming here looking for us to tell you to get on like Christian Mingles or something, or which one was going to be a good dating site, I'd go with Farmers Only, but I don't know.
But we're open. We're open to Christian Mingle talking to us now.
Oh, what? Like as a sponsor? I was for a second. I was like, "What are you saying right now?" What do you we closed that door. This like, but you can't do it now. No, that's right. Yeah, sponsor. Yeah, at Farmers Only. This episode today brought to you by Farmers Only.
The farmer and the city girl.
I'm not quite a farmer.
I know.
I just have an accent.
But I fought the city girl thing. I know we're closing and ending this, but I fought the city girl thing. Him and the kids would call me a city girl all the time.
We tried to give her a means to become country, and we offered her country points.
Yeah, which were a ripoff. You don't even get me started on that. He would give me a half a point for fishing crawdads out of the
No,
creek.
I offered you 3 points for that. I offered you 3 points.
I did pig wrestling, y'all. I did pig wrestling. I got in a muddy, stinky, poop-filled pig pen and wrestled
I think we call it
pig
manure if it's.
to the ground and lifted it up to put it in this bucket with 3 other people. And I got he tried to give me 5 points for that until our sweet friend Lisa said, "You had better give her at least 25 points for that." And
I think I gave you 10.
nothing gave me the 25.
Maybe.
I think because Lisa was standing right there and she's like,
I feel like pig wrestling was a.
I think I should have gotten an instant country.
That was a big one.
Country card. Here you go because you pig wrestle.
Y'all want to hear something funny? I had her whittle a stick one time. Like, if you've never whittled a stick, you can't be country. You got to whittle a stick. It's like give her a stick.
I spent hours on this.
Like shaved it down just to prove she was country.
But you have to understand me too. Like I enjoyed it. I'm like a very therapeutic kind of a person. Like I love painting because I just get into it. And I have this exercise bike and he's like, "Why do you like the exercise bike so much?" And I'm like, "Because it's one thing. I just focus on it and I just do it. I get in my own little world and I do it." That's like whittling the stick. It was like, I just sit there for hours and just whittle the stick because
It was our little dating game was like Kelly getting country points. Of course, I wanted to let her lose points too. I'm like, well, you know,
You can
if you
take
do
it.
that, and then she's like, you can't take the
you can't
points.
take them away.
Yeah.
But I gave up. The whole point of this is I gave up. I'm like, you know what? Take your country card and I'll be a city girl.
And so she never got it. She got about, I don't know, a third of the way in. And I think you got about 30 points, maybe 35 points.
This is why it's such a ripoff of all the things I did. 25 of those 30 points were wrestling a pig.
Okay, like, so I'm like, walk barefoot and I'll give you a half a point. Like, that's like, keep your shoes off No flip-flops. She's
How
got,
many did you give me for whittling that stick?
I think you got like a,
Half a point.
I feel like it was half of it.
Half a point for hours of whittling.
If you had become like a professional like whittler, like whittles, I'd give you more points, but you whittled a stick. Like, why is that like?
I went tubing in a river.
I gave you a whole point for that.
I don't think you did.
I did. Yeah, and I wasn't really. Oh, we're talking about tubing.
Yeah.
You didn't get any points for that. I was talking about when we went on the lazy river.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's not tubing. Remember when
Yes, it is. We were in tubes.
I thought you meant tubing like on the back of a boat.
But there was-
tubing.
I did that too.
You didn't get points for that.
That was horrifying.
You had given up on the points by then.
Yeah, maybe. But
Yeah,
that
so
was
you didn't
horrifying.
get points
Like,
for
I
that
feel my
That's
heart
not- that's not
racing
country, though.
thinking about that.
That's not country. Although, funny enough, I saw another podcast that they talked about this. It's Republican. I mean, if it's a boat, I just don't know any Democrats with boats.
Exactly.
Yachts, maybe, but not like river boats. Guy with a
I
pontoon.
want to know, for you guys who are still listening after an hour and 45 minutes, do you think that since I wrestled a pig, that I should be considered country? Because I'm going to die on that hill.
You think you should get all 100 points for the one action?
I wrestled a pig.
And you got a quarter of the way
had
there.
Manure up to my knees.
No,
in between
it's on
my
your face. I
toes.
got pictures. It's on your face.
It was bad. I mean,
But the fact that you called it poop and not manure proves that you're still not country.
no.
Yeah, well, I'm just telling y'all, look, like you can't walk outside barefoot. You always have to have flip-flops on.
I think flip-flops say country.
No, flip-flops say beach.
Do you want to know why he doesn't think that I'm country? Because I get my nails done
Yeah.
and because I want to get my hair
If you
done.
have to claim something as jewels, not tools, you can't call it country. Like country needs the tools.
I use them as tools, though. I cut boxes open with these suckers.
Amazon boxes, city.
He's got a little bit of a point. All right.
You know, I've seen you try to round up the chickens.
I don't want to hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to grab them because I don't want to hurt them.
City, y'all. She's not country. There's that song, She's Gone Country, and I think she like tried. You remember that song?
Yes.
She's gone country. Look at them boots. But that's what she wants. She wants us to look at the boots and be like, oh, look, she's country, but I don't think she's there. Y'all can tell me. I mean, she did move to Kentucky. I feel like that's a country point. Like you moved to Kentucky.
1,000 miles with me and 3 daughters, a U-Haul by myself.
I mean, that's determination. I'll give you a bunch of determination points and
Oh, yeah.
bravery. Like I'll give you those, but you don't get country points for that. You moved to Kentucky.
I would say the same thing. Yeah. I don't.
Now I would say our daughters are now country. Like maybe not Kaylee. She's not.
She's more country than I am, though.
Oh, definitely. See. But the youngest, there sometimes like
She is pure movie star.
yeah, but she's like Southern Belle movie star,
Yeah.
and especially though,
She marches to the beat of her own drum.
but their accents, her and Sophia both, they will say stuff, and I'm like, that was
Country.
yeah, they just had they put an extra syllable in that.
Little twang. And
Well-
my Massachusetts comes out a lot, and so he takes points away from me for that. But
She says bagels. Do you need
a bagel, a bagel. I don't even say it like that. I
You
say
want- you
it's
want-
a bagel, an everything bagel, everything bagel.
bagel?
How do you say it?
And say it the way you do when you're not thinking about it. You will say bagel. I can't even do it right. Bagel. You'll say to Mila, she'll be like, "You want a bagel with cream cheese?" I'm like, bagel.
I don't say that. I do not say that.
Or bag. They'll say bog.
But I do say like living room.
Rum. Yeah.
I don't say living room.
Room.
You see, I have to do room. Living room.
Well, that's the most awkward ending I think we've ever had. Thank y'all for joining us on Happy Chaos.
Yes. And stay tuned. I think we should do a midweek comment. Little
Oh, you want to do something in the middle of the week?
Yeah, just because we're going to do comments. We're going to go over comments. So if you guys leave them now between now and then, you guys might get on here and we can say a little something to what you're saying.
And I don't know if we're
Be kind.
maybe midweek, maybe who knows? Maybe we'll like in the middle of like our podcast, maybe we'll have a little section where we can read some of those comments. And some of them, honestly, I think that it would be good for us to maybe speak into some of those that maybe some of those more negative comments that not encouraging you to give us negative ones. We love the positive ones, but I think that
And let's shout out the positive ones. We have 97% positive comments.
Oh, for
and you
sure.
guys are amazing.
yeah,
Seriously.
for sure. But I think that to some degree it could be helpful to see like there's a reality behind what we say online.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a person there. That's a real person that you're really talking about, you know.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, sometimes we see the comments, it feels personal to you and I, but to that person it feels very distant because they just saw that video come up and so they say something and then they think they're going to move on. And, you know, for
I
you
have a hard time with that too, though. I don't want to give someone a platform because I'm thinking of one comment that's ongoing right now.
Oh, yeah.
That they're battling with other people. And
Oh, we don't have to.
saying,
Yeah, we don't have to give them any air to breathe.
Yeah,
I'm not saying,
agree.
but I'm just saying something that we could speak into. Anyways, we love you guys. Thanks for joining us on the Happy Chaos podcast.
Listening for hours to our rambling.
Where Kelly and I go on about something.
Yeah. I'm sorry if sometimes we get lost in what we're saying, but
Just get out in the weeds a little bit. That's all. I like to call those rabbit trails. We just chase them and then come back.
don't stop listening. Don't stop listening. I promise we'll have our moments in between where we actually say something productive.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week on Happy Chaos.
Yeah.
See you then.
Bye.